If we want to lead our missional communities towards multiplication, which we do, we're going to have to think through how we begin to identify, train up, and send out apprentice leaders. For me, in my experience, what I've found to be helpful in identifying who I would make an apprentice, or who I'd identify and put the hand on the shoulder and say, I want to begin to train you and to develop you, is this little acronym that I use called FATTER. It's not new. It's been used by a lot of people. I'm looking for someone who's faithful, available, teachable, and responsive. So in our missional community and in our environments together during the week, when we're going out together, when we're doing special projects together, when we're having parties together, when we're having Bible studies, when we're in DNA, whatever it may be that we're doing together throughout the week, I'm looking for, are they faithful? Do they show up when they say they're going to? Do they consistently commit to something when they say they're going to do it? When we say in a group, let's do this next month, do they show up for that? Do they help out with that? Do they press into that? So I'm looking for a faithfulness, someone who, when they say something, they do it. They're true to their word. I'm not looking for someone who does everything. I'm just looking for someone to do what they say they'll do, that they're faithful people. And so I'm going to create scenarios, in fact, where I get to see if what that happens. So I might even have a discussion in a group time saying, hey, let's talk about planning a retreat. Who would like to help with that? Someone says, I will. Then I'm going to now look and see how faithful they are to follow through with what they said they were going to do. It may be who will be in charge of putting together our meal schedules and to see if they faithfully do that. Maybe another person who says, in a time of discussion, I realize I need to go talk to somebody that's offended me or that I've been bitter at or I've had a hard time with for a long time. Then I'm going to pay attention. Do they go and do that? How long does it take them to be faithful to the thing that they said they believe God was calling them to do? So we're looking for faithfulness. Then we're looking for availability, meaning that they're willing to rearrange their schedule for others. They're willing to rethink the order of their life for the good of someone other than just themselves. So I remember even recently we were having a discussion in our missional community and saying, hey, we're going to start moving to Friday night as our regular weekly meeting. We were meeting on Wednesday night, but we need to move to Friday night because the school that we're reaching out to is going to have a barbecue every Friday night for some of the families that we're trying to serve there. And right away, I paid attention to what people were willing to do. And you had a few people, I remember even say, well, I want to always have Friday night open because you just never know. Like, that's a great night to go out, on a date or whatever it may be. And so we said, well, okay, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to move it to Friday night. We'd love for you to make yourself available for that and rearrange your schedule. And then we saw how many people were willing to rearrange their schedule and show up and change their pattern of life for the mission. Now, it may not just be something like that. It could also be, hey, we all want to learn how to listen to God in prayer more often. Okay, well, let's take Saturday mornings. We'll take an hour and we'll do prayer walks every week and learn how to listen to God. Or we'll open our Bible in a journal and I'll teach you how to do that. How many would like to do that? That's a little early in the morning. We don't want to get up that early. Okay, they're probably not yet willing to be available to grow more and more in their maturity. Now, it's not to say that there's something wrong with them or that we guilt them or shame them for not doing it. It's just when I'm thinking about an apprentice, I'm looking for faithful and available because I'm going to have to ask them to begin to take more and more responsibility. I'm going to ask them to rearrange their schedule to help others in our group, and they're going to have to learn how to lead in those ways. And then teachable. Teachable is somebody who's humble enough to admit that they don't know it all. They're willing to be confronted when wrong. They're willing to be rebuked when they're rebellious. They're willing to be trained in areas that they still aren't strong in. And so a lot of times I'll use an assessment to assess our whole group on the areas of spiritual maturity in many fields like prayer and Bible study and stewardship and witnessing. And we have a whole tool for how we do that. And what I'm looking for in that is when someone fills it out and acts like they have it all together. Like they don't really think they need help in anything. Now, it's not true because they do. They're likely trying to prove themselves and probably might have a difficulty receiving teaching and instruction. So I'm looking for someone who says, I'm weak in this and I need help in that. Or, Jeff, when you confronted me on that, there's some real truth there I need to listen to. And so they're easy to teach. They're easy to instruct. They're easy to correct. They're easy to rebuke. They're not the person who's constantly got a defense for every single thing that you bring to their attention, because that's just evidence of pride and insecurity in their life. So I need to have someone who's secure enough in the gospel and humble enough in that security to receive correction, to receive rebuke. And so the beauty is when you're on mission together with people, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to correct people, to rebuke people, to bring new teaching to areas where they're weak. And I'm always looking for how did they receive it? How did they respond to it? And that's the last one. Are they responsive? So when they're confronted, are they humble? And then are they responsive? Are they eager to put in place a new learning? Are they eager to step out in ways that they're growing in as you're teaching them? And you'll be able to see that because there'll be proactive engagement in obedience, and they'll continue to want more and more and more of it. Now, how do you create an environment where that happens? I've found that if you only use a weekly meeting to discover faithful, available, teachable, responsive, most people try to be on their best behavior for an hour or two or in a gathering on Sunday. So I like to create environments that don't seem normal, where the real stuff is going to show up. Like, hey, come and work on the side of my house for a day or two. Or, hey, we got some garbage we got to go clean up out of someone's house because they left a mess. Or, we're going to go to the hospital and visit some people that are really hurting right now. And so I'm going to start bringing them into situations where I can see, are they faithful? Are they available? Are they teachable? Are they responsive? And those are the places where it gets best tested, is the places where they're not even aware they're being assessed. And that'd be a thing I'd encourage you to think through, is create environments where assessment can happen without people being aware they're being assessed. Because otherwise they're just going to go, what hoops do I need to jump through? How do I perform? I want to be next in line, which are all the things you don't want if it's driven from a wrong motivation. Now, you want gospel ambition, but you don't want selfish ambition. So we want people to be eager to be faithful to the gospel, but we don't want them to be eager to be all about themselves. Now, as you create those environments, you're looking for faithful, available, teachable, responsive. As I begin to identify there's some who might be, and I think they are, I have just a few different tests that I have. Like, I might give them just a little bit more responsibility in the group and see how they handle it. It might be, I'd like you to start being in charge of our meetings and what we do on our special events once a month, or I want you to take charge of a retreat, or I want you to take leadership of a discussion. So I start to share leadership with them just a little bit and see how they handle that. A lot of times, if they really aren't as teachable as I thought, that's where it's going to show up, because they're not going to do it perfectly, but in those cases I get to correct them, and if they don't receive correction well, I probably have someone who's probably not yet ready to receive a whole lot more leadership. So we're going to have to pull back and say, okay, can we talk about how you received that correction? It gave me an indicator in your heart that it's hard for you to receive it. I thought that you might have been more ready for that. Let's talk about what happened there. Why did that tweak your heart just a little bit in that moment? So I'm devoted to their ongoing development. I'm not writing them off. I just might have to back up a little bit. They might not be as ready as I thought. Another way that I test it is that I'll often ask them to take leadership of something and see if anybody follows them, because people follow character and influence. And if they're increasingly growing in character and they're increasingly growing with leadership influence, when given the opportunity to lead, people will begin to follow their leadership. And if nobody follows them, I'm certainly not sending them out to start a missional community in which we're going to force someone to submit to them when nobody wants to. So I'm going to give little test points to let them lead something and see if anybody follows their leadership. Now, you got to think through this now in not just individuals, but in couples. When you're identifying an apprentice, sometimes it's a married person. It might be a guy and his wife. And so please be aware that you cannot just look for how well is this guy or woman prepared for this, but how are they together prepared for this? So I'm going to have to give them assignments together as a couple. Like, would you host in your home? And would you lead the next group time together? And see how they work together as a couple. How do they complement each other? Do they know how to lean into each other's strengths? Because that's going to be a huge area of development, and it is the complementary nature of man and woman together in ministry. We want them to maximize that to the way God intended it to be maximized. So that means not only am I going to have to be committed to their development, but likely my wife and I will have to help in apprenticing a husband and wife in what they're going to do. I won't be enough to be able to develop a husband and wife. We'll have to do that together. So a lot of times I'm leaning into my wife, Janie, saying, what do you think and what do you see and where do you think they need ongoing development? And how can we do that together so that they together are getting developed by us together. And so you'll have to think through developing the marriage, developing the financial life of that marriage, because that's another issue that's going to come up. They're going to have to spend more resources towards mission. You're going to have to look at how do they manage their household and their children, because when you're leading a missional community, you got to figure out how do they bring those kids in, and how do they lead other families, and how do they parent their kids on mission. So there's a lot of aspects that you're going to want to observe and begin to develop them in so that they're ready to leave. Now, when I get a group, a couple or a team of leaders ready to leave and be sent out of a missional community, one thing I will do is I'll let the group know we think that this couple or these individuals are ready to go and start a missional community themselves. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about the people that you feel God's calling you to reach and what you think it'll look like to go reach them together. And I let the group know they're free to recruit any of you to leave and join them. And they're free to recruit anybody outside of our group to join them in this mission. So I often will give a couple or a team of leaders about a month to begin to share the vision, go and recruit people, try to get people to follow them. And at the end of that month, if they've got nobody that wants to go with them, they're probably not ready. If they do have people that are ready to go with them, then we got to look at who are those kinds of people, because they might be divisive people that are just looking for a way to kind of have their own thing in the church, and we got to be very careful about that. We got to get people who are committed to being on mission with that group and for the people they believe they're being sent to. So one of the activities I will try at the end of that 4 weeks is I'll say in our group, okay, this couple's ready to go. We think they're ready to go. They're going to go to another part of the room tonight. And when they leave, all those who want to join them, you go with them. And they're going to then lead you through a discussion on what's next as they lead you out on mission to form a missional community covenant around reaching a people group in this part of the city. If they go to another room and no one follows, and they got no one from outside wanting to follow, they're probably not ready yet. So what I'm looking for is clear calling. I'm looking for character that's influential enough for others to join them. I'm looking for a people group they can identify that they really want to reach, and a plan of how they're going to begin to reach them. And if they've got that, they're probably ready to be sent out and be commissioned for the work.